Whoa, what the hell just happened in ReZero? Just finished watching episode 36, The Taste of Death, for the second time. And holy cow, I have a lot of things to unpack here. Before I move on, guys, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It helps a ton. But yeah, a lot of really interesting issues discussed in this episode. One, we're really getting into the humanity with return by death and what is life. The value of life is a super important theme throughout this show, and they touch on it through Subaru interacting with like multiple characters. One first I'm going to get into is Beatrice. So we start off the episode and Beatrice they're in the library. He kind of says he is that person, which is going to basically release Beatrice from her contract. Beatrice then tells him that basically she wants to die. And we find out that the future in that book, it has stopped producing results for years now. Now, one question I have is, how far in advance does this book write? I think I'm going to guess it's years, because some of the ways that Beatrice has been acting is like she's read this in the book and first saw it happening. And now it seems like we finally got into the point where she doesn't know what's going to happen in the book. She said it stopped writing years ago, but I personally believe that it might write years in advance. So that's just my thought. Kind of strange that she is holding on to it so much. Like it's that near and dear to her, when it's not writing the future anymore. So I don't know. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on that. We find out that she's had a contract with Echidna. This is Echidna's library, and it is Echidna's book, like I thought, and I pretty much everyone thought. Those two books, hers and Roswell's, were from Echidna. Now, the contract that Echidna made with her was basically telling her, hey, you need to stay in this library until the person shows up. We find out that they never described what the person would look like or anything like that. Now Subaru's taking the role of this person. Now, she mentioned in the episode before that someone kind of like did save her but didn't save her. I have a theory that it was actually Roswell who maybe did help and then didn't help in the end, and I'll get to it in the end. Roswell talks about Subaru becoming like him at the end of the episode. But just my thoughts. I could be totally off, but again, I'm just speculating, just throwing some stuff at the wall. Beatrice has been alive for 400 years and says to Subaru, and I took this as, I feel like she does have feelings for Subaru, and she said, hey, like, overwrite this contract, like, make me number one in your life, or kill me. So, and she's crying, and I honestly believed that she did have feelings for Subaru, and this kind of solidified for it. Maybe you guys disagree with me. I'd love to know what you guys think, but I personally think that she did have feelings for Subaru, but knows he's obsessed with Amelia. She's probably read it in the book at some point. Subaru kind of freaks out on her and is like telling her, like, you can't just ask to die. And she tells him, like, that's incredibly selfish of you, which makes sense because, to my knowledge, she knows that Subaru is returning by death. So he's able to die. Why is it, like a million times, why is it unfair for her to die once? Now, I think all of this with Beatrice and living for 400 years, and then all the lollies over, the elf lollies over in the sanctuary, they've lived 400 years. And you see, and I really like Echidna, but it's very like unethical to me, creating things that they are living and forcing them to just bid your will for hundreds of years. Think about all the people that they might have cared about and died. Now, I think it's even worse for Beatrice because she's basically been living in isolation in this library for 400 years. At least the girls over at the sanctuary, they also were given jobs and roles, but I feel like they can actually walk around and do more stuff. They're not waiting for one person that basically didn't come for 400 years. That's pretty rough. And mentally, we talk about all the mental strain that Subaru goes through and like the humanity that Subaru loses each time he dies. I believe that they're showing her as like a foil to Subaru where she can't die. She says that she's not allowed to kill herself. Basically, someone else has to kill her. And she's like lost her will to live and just wants her life to end. That it's broken her. Subaru, he's losing his humanity every time he's killing himself. Or not every time he's killing himself, but every time he dies. So it's interesting seeing the two. Both instances, you lose your sense of humanity. Now, in theory, if Subaru lives for 100 years because this return by death thing is like infinite, how do you think he would act? Like, he's been going through this, like a year and a half maybe in the show? I'm unsure the timeline, but this is mentally breaking him. Imagine if he lived for 100 years with return by death. It's horrible. Ends up that Elsa shows up and Beatrice and Subaru escape. They run into Maylee, which is one of the girls from the village, cute little girl, but she's not cute now because she's a sorceress who can control mob beasts, and she says that she killed Petra and Frederica. You guys know how much I like Petra. She's basically like a mockingbird. All she does is bring joy to the world. Very sweet, nice girl. And Maylee killed her. So automatically I'm like, all right, I don't care how old this girl is, you need to kill her. She killed Petra. No one kills Petra and gets away with it. Elsa shows up. Then we see the power of Beatrice. She goes absolutely ham using magic, turns Elsa into like a crystal like type of thing, and it looks like Elsa shatters. That's what we think. And then Subaru stops her from attacking Maylee. Would she have killed her? I personally think so, but who knows? He's like, oh, she's a kid. Bro, are you serious? You're gonna be ethical right now? Like, she's not a fan of this move. And Beatrice ends up getting stabbed by Elsa. You see that it's really interesting because she's like a spirit and like this spirit's like falling out of her. Subaru's losing his shit. He gets shanked in the eyeball by Elsa. And then this is another thing, how OP Beatrice is. She just teleports him into the sanctuary. Are you serious? So somehow she gets him over the sanctuary. I thought he was going to bleed out or die from like the eyeball thing, but homie's still alive. Then he runs into Yandere Amelia. She's at the level of like Kotonoha from School Days. If you guys haven't seen that, not necessarily great anime, but disturbing and entertaining if you like trashy anime. We find out that she never got the letter from Subaru that he left saying that he needed to go on a mission, and she's basically in isolation going full crazy. And so my opinion is, and I've seen some people have tweeted different things. They say that no, she's just like gone crazy. I honestly think one part of it could be that she's mentally losing it. And maybe she's mentally broken in a certain way, but the Witch of Envy, Satella, is basically possessed her. Because if you look into her eyes, it's that same like purple and black like aura thing that Satella has when you see like her hand coming in to grab Subaru's heart, when Satella was moving around in the last episode. And some people thought that was Amelia possessed. I don't know if it was last episode or one before, or either way, but where you see someone who's a half witch. Now this time where Amelia's here, it is Amelia. The other time she was, whoever it was wearing black and had like the same hairpin that Satella has. So I think the other time it was Satella, and this is just Satella possessing Amelia. But if you guys have some proof that's not spoilers from the future in the light novels, go ahead and comment, or even if you guys disagree with me, I'd like to hear it, because I haven't talked to many people about it. I'm kind of confused. Amelia eventually tells him that she loves him, and then that's when Subaru's like, nah, like, this isn't really Amelia. She's just broken. This is Yandere Amelia. So this is another thing. We see the Yandere Amelia, and she's like mentally broken from this isolation. And Subaru at times is very isolated. I mean, he couldn't even talk about Return by Death until he talked to Echidna and was able to like open up about her. So he's been, even though he has people that love him, he's very isolated. So again, this is like showing us, could this be another route that Subaru goes? Can he become like Yandere Subaru? I don't know. We're seeing flashes of where he breaks or he's just like dead and lifeless. So again, this is another like foil to Subaru, like, hey, this could be the future if things don't go the way they need to go. So Subaru ends up with Ram, Garfield, and they're talking to Roswaal, like calling him out for creating the snow. Like, what's the deal? Why are you doing this? It's supposed to be summer, dude. It's cold as shit. No one likes this. Roswaal says to Subaru, like, did I tell you this before? So again, we already knew by the end of the other episode that Roswaal knows that basically that Subaru returns by death. But this is like him giving like a little taste, like, hey, like, I know that you return by death, but I can't say it in front of everyone else. Then eventually Garfield's kind of like arguing with him, and Ram jumps in front of Roswaal to stop Garfield. And dude, this was honestly a bigger shock than the bunny rabbits a few episodes ago. Freaking Roswaal goes freaking beast mode, just slashes through with his bare hands through Ram and kills Garfield, or like really injures Garfield. Ram dies. Garfield's still fighting and kind of turning into beast form, and then Roswaal like does cross kick, almost like kicks his head off. Garfield's dead. Subaru's like in disbelief. Roswaal calls out Subaru and is like, you felt no grief. Basically, like, you felt no grief because you think you can go back and fix it. So again, saying return by death without saying return by death. And this is throwing Subaru off. Now, he eventually admits, like, hey, I did the snow because I wanted to keep Amelia isolated in an area where the witch is, like, where there's a strong connection to the witch. So, I think he's trying to do this. He's basically playing his hand, so Subaru has no option but to complete the trials. There's nothing else he can really do at this point. If he goes to the mansion, shit pops off. If he goes over, if he doesn't do the trials, like, Amelia breaks. So, I think that Roswell's basically played it, and then you got the Great Rabbit, too. So there's all these things, and I feel like Elsa is hired by Roswaal. That's my opinion. Roswell's he can see the future, so he knows what Subaru needs to do for the right path. I honestly believe that he's the one doing all this, because he's already manipulating all this stuff and willing to just torture Amelia to make Subaru go on the path that he needs to go down. So that's just what I think. And I think there's some way that he's stopping Puck from being able to basically be summoned by Amelia too. I think he's the culprit of that. That's the thing that makes the most sense to me. Subaru's obviously like upset. He just killed 2 people. Like Roswaal just killed 2 people. Subaru and him are arguing. He sees that Roswaal also has the other book, but Roswaal, the way Roswell's talking, seems like it's still being written. So the idea that Beatrice said earlier that maybe it stopped being written because the person's going to die, maybe Roswaal isn't supposed to die yet, so that's why it's still being written. Or in the true future, he's not going to die yet. So that's my opinion. That's what I think about that. I think his is still being written, and he says that he talks about having a long future with Subaru. So this isn't even close to the end between these 2 guys. And you see that the rabbits are coming. They were lured in by him using all that mana for the snow, which makes sense because the other time we saw him, it was snowing as well. So he goes out there basically to accept his death. He beats up Subaru at some point too, says he can't kill Subaru, but he can do other things. Then he tells Subaru that there's like one thing that's the most important. If you eliminate all the other things, you can basically catch up to me and become like me. So again, he's so manipulative, and he's like a puppet master almost. And this is what he wants Subaru to get to. And he tells Subaru how he can get to this. So again, we've seen how it is for Beatrice. She lived 400 years in isolation, kind of like Amelia, but a little bit different. So in isolation, 400 years, waiting and waiting and waiting. Then we got Yandere Amelia, who's just like going through really hard trials in isolation, basically being mentally tortured in these trials, and mentally breaks. Then we see Roswaal, who almost doesn't even have a soul. He just is on his path. He knows what he needs to do, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get where he needs to. And that's what Subaru might have to look forward to if he goes down the Roswaal path. So far, all the paths don't look very good for Subaru. If you guys see how these characters are different, again, I love getting in conversations about this in the comments. It's super fun. So let me know what you guys think. But that's how I see it with that. And can't forget, Subaru goes back. He's all bitten by the rabbit. Somehow survives. I don't understand how. And runs into Yandere Amelia again. She puts him on his lap, and then it looks like she's about to give him the kiss of death. So yeah, wild episode. The taste of death. Wow. I don't know how they do it every episode. They shock me more and more. And even though he's been on basically on this same track, he hasn't gotten past like a 4-day period almost this whole season so far. But it's been amazing every time. It's truly remarkable how the show does this. But I'd love to know what you guys think about the episode, what you guys think about the different characters I was talking about who are foils to Subaru in this, and him losing his humanity. Hey guys, this is Wade Willis. Thanks for watching my video. Here's 2 other videos I think you might like, and don't forget to subscribe to my page.